Chairman of the committee, who would have been here. I would have recognized at the outset, but he was just returning from Alaska from a funeral of former Secretary of Interior Wally Hickel, and it was a noble thing to do to be there and tribute to him. So now I'll recognize the gentleman for an opening comment and then questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I was sitting here as deja vu, you and I helped write OPA. I think we're the only two members in Congress that wrote OPA. And the reason I bring that up, gentlemen and Mr. Chairman, is that the Exxon Valdez spill was a tragedy such as this one is. The first one we had of that magnitude, although Secretary of Interior Wally Hickel had the same thing occur off the coast of Santa Barbara. But out of that, we were able to write OPA, and I think is a good piece of legislation, because until that time we had no way to respond to an oil spill. And we developed a good system with the Coast Guard, with the communities, and it's worked very well. We did not prepare for this type of spill, for both of you gentlemen, this far offshore. And I think out of this, as you mentioned, we should learn how to, in fact, keep that from happening. Under our Exxon Valdez spill, we do have the liability clauses. We have the double tugs that go take and escort the vessels out. We have the double hull vessels. We have the booms. We have the rescue vehicles. We've done everything, I believe, to prevent a spill coming in or going out of petroleum product. Now we have to address this issue and solve the problem. And I want to stress to this committee that this is, in fact, to try to find out what did happen and how do we prevent it from happening again, because we are going to drill. We didn't shut the pipeline down when we had the spill. We continued pumping oil to the lower 48, not to overseas. We continued taking tankers through the straits. And it's just like anything else, we have to go forth and learn from what occurred. The one thing I would caution you, and I say this to everybody in the audience of the committee, that the desire to clean up sometimes causes more damage than you might consider. We have cases in the Prince William Sounds where we use steam, when we use Dawn soap. Was the greatest. If you had any Palmolive Dawn soap or whatever it is, any stock, you did well. But actually the damage from that was probably more far-reaching, because we were trying to clean something that was visually offensive to the human eye. So let's be very careful what dispersants we use, what type tactics we use, but the desire to do so, because the media is always looking at that dead duck, as I saw in Exxon Valdez. Be very careful. That's all I suggest to you. One thing I would stress, and I'm going to go to my question, Mr. Chairman, is the thing that was most unjust, the tragedy of the Exxon Valdez spill, was not necessarily the environment. It was the impact upon the fishermen and those that derived income and a livelihood. 22 years we were in court with the responsible party. 22 years, gentlemen, and when it was finally settled, I think the amount of money received was less than $5,000 per fisherman. I don't want to see that in the Gulf. And I believe, and Mr. McKay, I'll ask you in a moment, that you're addressing that issue now. Once it gets in the court, my good friends, you are creating a problem from those that should receive the benefits from this tragedy. When I say benefits, recovering the loss of income because of it. And that's the one issue. The environment has recovered. Yes, some will disagree with me. We did lose one species of fish to some degree, but not totally, and that was the herring, because we lost the spawning eggs on the shore. Salmon have come back, very well done. The environment looks great. You can't hardly see it. Yes, there's some oil under the rocks, and that's been there before. But that's my one challenge to you, is to make sure whatever you do in this cleanup process, make sure that it does not do more damage. And that goes back to my first question, Mr. McKay, the fishermen. You are now settling with fishermen and as far as lost income, and that's really created not by this bill, because the state will allow them to fish, the NOAA will allow them to fish.
We are settling with fishermen. Some of the fishing areas are closed. There's about 19% of the Gulf closed right now, so there are closed areas. We are compensating those fishermen. We are also, and actually most of these fishermen want to work rather than than just get claims. So a lot of those fishermen are working in terms of the response.
But I understand that, and I commend you for that. Paying, I understand, a considerable amount of money for some of their boats. I understand that. They did the same thing in Alaska, but what happened once the cleanup process was stopped, and then they still couldn't fish, and they lost income over, I'd say, 22 years. And that's not the way I want to see this done.
No, we're sticking with this. We've made if I could just say that the structure on the Oilfield Pollution Act is good. We plan on fully fulfilling those obligations, and that does not mean it stops at the end of the cleanup. And we have made it clear we're going to pay all legitimate claims due to the impact of this.
And I do compliment you on that, because that's the most important thing out of this, is the impact of the economy on the coastal